Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. It seems like the era of the girl boss in film and television seems to be over. Now, the reason why the era of the girl boss seems to be over is because it seems like it's not fiscally profitable for Hollywood. Now, over about 10 years ago, back around 2014, I would say, Hollywood wanted to start and manufacture a trend where they would be able to create action films and TV shows with female leads. Unfortunately, the trend never really caught on with the audience of women they were looking to target. And the reason why it didn't really catch on with the audience it was trying to target was because the action genre in America and the West is primarily one that appeals to men. And even though you have outliers like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess, and even films like the Alien and Terminator series, and films like those in the MCU that appeal to women, the big base for these films is primarily men. Now, the whole action movie genre has been very popular with men for decades, and many men like films like those that Sylvester Stallone used to star in, such as the police action movies like Cobra, or comedies like Tango and Cash, or the Rambo series of movies, and others like films like Arnold Schwarzenegger stars in, like the Terminator franchise, or films like True Lies, or films like those that he starred in back in the 80s like Raw Deal and Commando. And what made these films appealing to most men is the action and adventure going on, and what many people didn't really understand was these films also appeal to women as well, because women really like the whole idea of a strong masculine man who has really strong muscles and can go out here and is very confident and can go out here and drop a one-liner as he's taking on the bad guys. And that's what makes these action heroes appealing to both men and women. Men like the whole idea of this guy being in action and adventure, whereas women like the idea of this man being a handsome man who represents an ideal of manhood that they can get swept away in the fantasy of. And many studio executives thought they could go out here and be able to flip this entire script as related to action movies, featuring them with heroines. Unfortunately, what they didn't really understand was the formula for making an action story with a heroine is completely different than that of a man. Now, when it comes to action stories that feature heroines such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess, what made those franchises successful was, again, their appeal to both men and women. It appealed to men primarily because men are visual and they like the idea of the flash of eye candy. And when it appealed to women, there was a story that appealed to them as related to romance and adventure. What made Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess really popular with both men and women was that you had an extremely attractive woman such as Sarah Michelle Gellar or Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor to look at. And as they were in these action stories, the guys could care about the women as related to how attractive they were, one, and two, as they got caught up in their looks, they could watch the substance of the story. Now, for the women, they liked the idea of these women being friendly and relatable in that they were women just like them. And they also saw these women as possible helpmeets to attractive guys. Like in the case of Buffy, she had a boyfriend, Angel, and she also was out here having a relationship. And the romance aspect really appealed to a lot of women because they like the idea of being able to have a man that they could go out here and help out as related to their mission. And they also like the idea of the relationships that these women had. That was another aspect of what made these series popular, was that Buffy had lots of friends like Willow and Xander and Cordelia that she had gotten close to, and the relationships were very important as related to her story. Same thing with Xena Warrior Princess. What made that series popular was the fact that Xena and Gabrielle had this friendship and this bond like sisters that broke them close to each other. So both of these series really had story elements that really made them appealing to audiences of both men and women. Yes, you got the action and the adventure, but you also got a great story, and you got to see great relationships dynamics that appealed to both men and women, in that men saw Xena and Gabrielle and Buffy as women that they could consider to be the kind of women they could consider to be girlfriends or wives, and you had women who saw a woman who was somebody they could consider to be a friend or even consider to be like a sister. Unfortunately, when it came to these new modern films, they really didn't focus on the relationship dynamics that made these stories that featured heroines relatable like Buffy and Xena. No, what they wanted to do was put the woman in a leadership role and show her as the most powerful one in the room. And as they looked to try to show this woman as the one that was the most powerful one in the room, such as in films like the new sequel Star Wars trilogy that featured Rey, what they wanted to do was show the woman in the lead, not looking at the natural relationship dynamics between men and women. No, what they wanted to do was show Rey as being the most powerful woman in the film. Unfortunately, as they looked to show her being the most powerful, she really didn't have good relationship dynamics that made her relatable as a character. No, when it came to Rey, Rey was just a very one-dimensional character who really didn't have that warm connection with people the way Princess Leia did when she was portrayed by the late Carrie Fisher. No, Princess Leia was a strong heroine in that she had strength of character to have a resolve to stand in the face of Darth Vader's torment, but she was also friendly and relatable to Luke Skywalker, and she also had a great dynamic with Han Solo. So there were relationship dynamics that made Princess Leia relatable, in that yes, she was a princess, but she was also somebody who could have relationships with other people without being harsh and abrasive, to the point where you couldn't really see yourself in her role, or see yourself caring about, or see yourself in a role where you cared about her. I mean, you could see yourself, again, women could see themselves as Princess Leia, as part of the adventure, and they could also see themselves as being in the arms of a roguish guy like a Han Solo, and they could also see themselves being friendly with Luke Skywalker and Ben Kenobi. I know she didn't really meet Ben Kenobi until later in the film, and didn't even last that long, but the whole thing is that with Leia, that was my mistake because she didn't really meet Ben Kenobi. So, but the whole thing is that Leia basically was relatable, and that was something that was done with Rey. With Rey, you really never felt a connection with Rey. No, she just really was just, yes, she was a woman, and yes, she was there, and that was all that was there to her. And the same thing with many of these heroines in these so-called girl boss films. What they would do is, yes, they would give you a woman in the story, but that woman would never answer that third critical question that a screenwriter and a novelist who writes heroines like myself has to answer, and that question is, why should we care? I mean, why should people care about a heroine who is basically just there because she is female? That is the problem that Hollywood had with the girl boss characters. Yes, they were strong physically as related to power, but that whole dynamic basically made those women appear to be masculine. And when they were made to appear to be acting masculine, what that did was make those women unattractive to both men and women. Men were basically turned off because they saw this woman not as a woman that they could see as a possible girlfriend or somebody they could see as a wife or having traits that they found to be attractive. And women basically were turned off because this woman basically was acting masculine and was in some cases reminding them of the bosses they had at their jobs, who was loud, argumentative, and abrasive in an effort to overcompensate for her inability to be able to relate to people. And this basically made these films a complete turnoff to both men and women. Because when it comes to heroines, there is a model that really is successful for making a story featuring a heroine, and sadly Hollywood was looking to try to make women like men, and as they looked to make women like men, they turned off both men and women because these women were not sexy in a way that, again, visually appealed to men, and two, they were not relatable to women in a way that they could be a friend to women. Now, I myself am a writer of heroines in books like the ISIS series and the Esteem series, and even in books like the novels of the Spinsterella trilogy, like Spellbound, The Legendary Mad Matilda, and Spinsterella. And I also write them in romances like A Recipe for Success and horror novels like Eternal Night. And from my over 20 years of experience writing heroines, I can tell you that what makes a heroine successful is not the same thing that makes a male hero successful. Now, a male hero is known for having his physical strength and beating the bad guys, and that's the whole core of a male hero story. And the male hero's journey is about him overcoming odds as related to him using his mind, because when it comes to men, men are completely different than women, and a man is logical, and because he is logical, we want to see a logical sequence of him beating the bad guys, and we want to see a logical sequence of him beating the bad guys because it's a man's whole thing to be able to physically overcome obstacles, because that's playing to his natural strengths as a man, and that's appealing to men because men want to see men being naturally masculine and being able to go out here and use those male life skills such as critical thinking, logic, and reason, and again, using physical strength with logic and reason to overcome the odds. That's what makes a male hero in an action movie appealing to men as related to natural masculinity, and appealing to women because women are seeing a handsome, muscle-bound man going out here and solving problems and taking the lead. Most importantly for women, seeing that man take the lead, that is the thing that turns women on as related to watching male action movies. And this is why the MCU was extremely popular with women, because they got to see men in leadership roles like Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, and they got to see these big, handsome, muscle-bound men going out here and overcoming the odds and beating up the bad guys, and then getting with the women who were basically avatars for themselves. That is what made those films appealing to both to women as related to these movies, and appealing to men as related to the action. Now, when it comes to women, women want to see a different type of heroine as related to stories, and when it comes to women, they don't want to see physical strength like a man. No, they want to see a woman being a complement to a man, and that's what they find attractive about heroines in action films. Now, if you look at action films and even animated series like Gargoyles, when you look at the heroines, what makes them attractive to women is that they are always at the side of a very attractive man, and as they are with that attractive man, what they are doing is working with that man towards helping him solve problems and helping him overcome adversaries. I mean, if you look at Gargoyles with Elisa Maza, she was working with Goliath towards helping him be able to survive in the city 1,000 years after a spell was cast on him and his rookery mates. That was what made that character attractive to women, was seeing her at the side of a hot guy who was strong and masculine. And when you look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Buffy was basically surrounded by lots of strong men, intellectually strong men like Giles, who she was getting guidance and counseling from, and she was also in love with Angel, a hot vampire. Again, she was in the presence of strong masculine men, and that's what made the series attractive to her. Same thing with early episodes of Xena, Warrior Princess. Again, Xena was attractive because she was involved with Hercules, a Greek god. And again, women love the idea of being around powerful men, and they want to be in the presence of powerful men as they are helping them out. And as they're helping them out as related to overcoming their obstacles, what they want to show is their strength of character. It's that strength of character that really is the core of what makes a heroine really cool to a lot of women. It's that strength of character to stand up for what's right and stand up for what's good. That's what makes a heroine attractive to women, is, again, being in the presence of strong men, but also having the strength of character to stand up for herself in helping those men overcome whatever adversity they're running into. I mean, if you look at Sarah Connor, she's in the presence of Kyle Reese as related to helping him with the future. And if you're looking at, again, other women like Ripley, she's helping out the men on that team be able to overcome the aliens. So when you have heroines, again, they can work in solo stories, and they work for two ways. Again, I know this because I've been writing heroines for years, and I've got the sales to prove it. I mean, when it comes to heroines, women want to see that woman in the presence of a strong, handsome man who's doing well, and they want to see that woman helping that man out, and they want to show how they have the strength of character and moral position to be able to help that hero be able to get the victory. And it goes back to the old African proverb, which stated, "A race can rise no higher than the moral position of its women, and as the woman goes, so goes the race." And again, women really want to see stories about strong women helping out strong men. That was even shown in the 2017 Wonder Woman movie, where Diana wanted to help Steve Trevor. Again, women want to show their strength as related to their character in standing up for a cause, and that all is a part of a woman's emotional state, because women are emotional, and what stimulates a woman's emotions to be incentivized to go pick up a ticket for a movie is seeing a beautiful woman who they basically see as an avatar of themselves in the presence of a handsome man, and seeing that woman helping that man and having the strength of character to help him stand up. That's the thing that makes these films exciting for women. And women also like seeing women like Mary Jane and Spider-Man basically, again, be a part of the film as a romantic angle. I mean, when you're doing action films for women or action stories for women, there are elements you need to have if you're going to put a female lead in a story. But today's Hollywood screenwriters, they walk away from those things because feminists told them that they were sexist. Unfortunately, what feminists don't understand is that there's a formula that appeals to both men and women, and guys like Fred Silverman back in the 70s knew what that formula was. When they were making shows like Charlie's Angels and Wonder Woman, they understood that, yes, you want to do a story with a heroine, but what's going to sell to men and women is you're going to need some jiggle and some stuff to really get people's attention, to make them care about what they're watching. I mean, this is something that I understand when I'm writing Isis and Esteem books, and I'm even writing books like those in the Spinsterella trilogy, or books like Eternal Night, or even books like The Thetas. I understand that, yes, I'm going to show strength of character, but there has to be something else to appeal to people. And again, when it comes to heroines, you're going to have some sex appeal. You're going to have some cheesecake. And again, this is because this appeals to both men and women. Men and women both love cheesecake. When it comes to guys, they love the cheesecake because men are visual and they want to dream about the girl they want to get with as related to this character. one, and two, for the women, they want to have something there that shows them what they can look like if they go out here and want to be appealing and attractive to men. That's what makes these characters appealing to both men and women. Unfortunately, when it came to Hollywood, what they wanted to do was socially engineer the idea of the girl boss, this very hyper-masculine female who was going to be stronger than a man, physically more powerful than a man. And again, that's very unattractive to women. And it's unattractive to women because most women don't want to be seen as a girl boss. They don't want to be seen as masculine because their goal is to try to watch these movies to find out what they can see is appealing to men. And when it comes to action movies that they're putting out right now featuring heroines such as Rey or the Black Widow movie or the Marvels or Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, or She-Hulk Attorney at Law, when it comes to these heroines, they are so masculine and so aggressive that they are extremely unattractive, and they don't have any of the softness that their predecessors, Xena or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, had, or even Sarah Connor or Ripley. Yes, Ripley and Sarah Connor were kind of tough, but there was a little bit of softness with each of them. I mean, there was a little maternalism as related to John Connor in Terminator 2 for Sarah Connor. There was a little bit of sexual tension with Reese in the first Terminator, and with Ripley, she was still a woman that guys kind of wanted to check out. And when it came to Buffy and Xena, they were both, again, women that guys liked. So when it comes to heroines, there are certain dynamics that you have to have in a story. And I understood this back when I was writing the character of Isis in Esteem back in 1999. When I was writing Isis in Esteem in 1999, I understood that I wanted to, again, bring those dynamics in there because I understood women. Yes, you wanted to show a woman who had superpowers, but you needed to show her as soft and feminine. You needed to show her as somebody that a guy would want to go out here on a date on, a woman that guys want to see as their girlfriend. And that's something that Rey and many of these other characters like Furiosa just weren't. They were not the kind of women that guys wanted to go home and bring to their mothers. They weren't the kind of women that were not attractive to men, and that's why men didn't spend money on tickets to see Furiosa and many of these other films like the Terminator Salvation, I believe, and all these other films like the new Charlie's Angels. I mean, these films didn't appeal to people because the women were not attractive to either men or women, and they weren't attractive to men or women because they were designed to basically be these sort of masculine kind of characters. And again, men run into masculine women basically every day at the job and in the streets, and they don't want to go to the theater to spend money to go spend time to see a masculine woman. Same thing with many of the feminine women out here. Many of the softer, more feminine women, they have no incentive to see a masculine woman on screen who's trying to be the man, when their whole plan for going out here is to get the man of their dreams, and they're not seeing anything that's going to help them be able to get the man of their dreams. So Hollywood was basically selling to an audience that did not exist with these films, and as they sold to Hollywood these films with an audience that did not exist, this is why these films wound up bombing at the box office and dying on streaming services and dying on television, because Hollywood just doesn't understand that you cannot socially engineer things that are biologically hardwired into men and women. You can't socially engineer things that are biologically engineered into men and women, because heterosexual men and heterosexual women, they want to be able to hook up with each other. And again, when it comes to men love seeing attractive women who are soft and feminine. And when it comes to women, they love to see masculine men. And if you're going to do a story that features a heroine, most men want to see soft, attractive women. And they want to see a soft, attractive woman who can go out here and stand at their side. That's what most men and women really want. And that's what I've seen when I go out here and I write books like those in the Isis series or the Esteem series. And with Isis and Esteem, again, they're popular because they're standing at the side of a handsome man like a John Haynes, and they're helping out a man. And I noticed that when I was, again, starting to publish Esteem books, really started to see that a lot of women were picking up the books because she was at the side of this rich CEO and helping him take on these supernatural threats. And the fact that she was living in a penthouse and was buying expensive designer clothes, that made the character very appealing to women because she was living a life they wanted to live. Same thing with Isis, who's the goddess next door. She's this girl next door who is a friend, and because she's a friend, she's got relatable traits that make you like her and really respect her. And the same thing with other characters I've done, like Matilda Crowley. She's a black goth character, but people like her because she's just a genuinely nice person who has lots of friends in the goth scene who are black and hangs out with black people and also has boyfriends and stuff like that. Again, people like seeing people who are like them. And when they look at these girl boss heroines, they don't see a woman they want to spend time with. No, they see the woman who basically makes their lives miserable. And nobody's going to spend $18 to see the woman who makes them miserable. No, they want to spend time with a woman who can be a friend and a woman who's living a life where they can get tips as related to how they can dress cool and how they can go out here and attract guys and get tips for attracting guys. And guys like seeing them because they say, this is a girl who's kind of hot and this is the kind of girl I want to step to. And Hollywood doesn't understand that formula for success, and this is why their girl boss failed, because nobody likes the idea of a masculine woman who is physically as strong as a man, because that basically emasculates most of the men as related to these kind of stories, and it makes men feel emasculated when they watch these kind of films. No man wants to see a woman being more powerful than he is, because naturally a man who wants to be seen as a leader and authority figure that's respected by women, most women won't respect a man who she's stronger than, and that's why these movies wind up flopping, because no woman wants to watch a man get emasculated. No, she wants to see a man taking charge. She wants to see a man helping to solve problems, and she wants to help solve those problems. That is what makes a story with a heroine very appealing to women. And as a guy who has been writing heroines for over 20 years, I just shook my head when they talked about, how they were going to make these strong heroines, when I know for a fact from the book sales I've gotten on different books featuring heroines and the fact that women love these kind of characters who, again, are at the side of a man. I know that, yes, you can make a film with a heroine, but it has to have certain elements that are appealing to women, and those elements may appear to be sexist to some women, like the whole idea that you may have to put some jiggle in it with some TNA or some cheesecake. You're going to have to put that in there, and you're also going to have handsome, hunky guys. Those are the things that appeal to the largest audience of women. This is what made the MCU popular. Women loved Iron Man. They loved 2002 Spider-Man. They went to see 2002 Spider-Man like crazy because Peter Parker was the hunky guy who had the power. And same thing with Captain America and Thor. Women love handsome men. They love to see films with a man in them because they see themselves in these stories. And again, if you want to appeal to women, you've got to go out here and make an action. If you want to make an action movie, you've got to make an action movie that appeals to most women. And when it comes to women, they want a story where we see a woman not being physically strong, but mentally and emotionally strong, because women are emotional. And because women are emotionally strong, they want to see a woman with strong character to stand up for what she believes in, not somebody like Rey, who basically is a Mary Sue, who never has to go through any obstacles. That's another problem that most women have with these characters. They never see these women basically lose, basically fail, or go through hardship. Now, when I write heroines, they get put through the ringer emotionally and mentally, and they have to make really hard choices. If you read books that I've written, like Spellbound and Legendary Mad Matilda, Matilda basically gets destroyed in both of those books and has to pick herself up. And if you read other books I've written, like The Thetas, Colleen basically has to try to pick herself up after finding out that her feminist views just ain't gonna cut it in the real world. And with the Isis series, Isis is learning about the world and learning she can't do things the same way. And with Esteem and the Temptation of John Haynes, she basically got put through the ringer. And in the Eternal Night, Lilith basically she learns how hard life is as a vampire. I mean, I put these women through full character transformation arcs, and I put them through really tough struggles. And I put them through tough struggles because I understand that just like the male heroes, the female heroes can be relatable if you tell the right stories. And if you tell the right stories, you can go out here and get people excited about stories featuring heroines, and you can get both men and women excited. That's where Hollywood made its mistake, thinking it was going to target women. But when you go out here and do stories that feature heroines, you've got to target the guys as well, because it's the guys who love to watch action, but the girls will watch action if there's a story where they see relationships. So you really have to understand how to appeal to both audiences. And when it comes to action stories, I usually target primarily men when it comes to action stories, but I also can get the women because I understand there are relationship dynamics that women find appealing. So when it comes to the action films, again, having a female lead is viable, but it's all about the story and the execution of concept, and that's where Hollywood gets it all twisted. They think they can make a woman like a man, but the whole thing is that women watch action movies for different reasons than men do, and if you want to be able to make an action movie with a female lead, you're going to have to make a film that appeals to both men and women. Now, if you want to pick up my stories featuring heroines in action and adventure, you can pick up the books like in the ISIS series, the Esteem series, and you can pick up books in the John Haynes series and books in the Spinsterella trilogy and my vampire novel, Eternal Night. You can find all of those books that feature action and adventure with female leads on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find all of those books at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and you can find them at big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos about action heroines and science fiction and fantasy, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in digital format at Amazon.com, Google Play, Draft to Digital, and other digital booksellers, or pick up your paperback copy on May 24th. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door must take on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.